Yeah. Malcolm called me because there was a 11 o'clock health task force meeting.
This meeting of the Dare County Board of Elections is called to order at 11 a.m. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here again today. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of
of
the
the
United
United
States
States of America and to the republic which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty and
justice for
justice
all.
for all.
All right. Should we bring Randy in now prior to approving the agenda and the minutes? All right. So we have our quorum. Everyone is here in person and by electronic device.
Yes.
Good morning, Randy.
Good morning.
How are you feeling?
Don't ask.
Awesome. All right. Has everyone had a chance to look over the agenda? Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes from our meetings on the 7th, 12th, and 13th?
Yes.
All right, there
Yes.
were a couple minor changes to those, just, is there a motion to approve those minutes as presented?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, I'm sorry.
That's
All right.
all right.
Is there, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so now we move on to review and certify our election results in Canvas. Madam Director, sorry.
Okay, good morning. Randy, you have the copies of the tapes. So the first thing that I will present to the board are tapes. These tapes come from the tabulators. So they are representing the ballots cast at each one of these reporting groups. So we have absentee by mail, provisional, early voting BOE, which is the early voting site here, early voting Kill Devil Hills Town Hall, and then 6 election day tabulator tapes. So I'm going to present them to you to look at. And what you'll find is when you take the figures, absentee by mail, which was 32 votes, provisional, which is 2, early voting Kill Devil Hills 684, BOE 458, when you take those totals, and then when you also add up the Kill Devil Hills tapes, results tapes, you're going to come up with 3407. And then along with the tapes, you each have a copy of the voter history. It's just a screenshot of the top because it's pages and pages and pages of 3,408 voters. And so that is one off from our public count. And the reason why is because we have one incident where an incident report was completed in Nags Head where a voter presented to vote. They made it through the check-in station. The ATV was printed. The voter signed it. The voter moved on to the ballot station. They were given the ballot. They took possession of the ballot. After looking at the ballot, they decided that they were not educated enough to make the voting to vote. And so they chose not to vote. And they gave the ballot back to the ballot station and left the voting enclosure. The ballot station judge, Victor Fox, gave that ballot to the chief judge, made the chief judge, Debbie Jones, aware of the situation. She spoiled that ballot, even though it was blank. There was nothing on it. He did not even begin voting. As far as marking the ballot, she spoiled it. She made contact with me. She was told to complete an incident report. Per guidance in the past, And based off of the North Carolina Administrative Code, we were always told once the voter took possession of the ballot that they had begun the process of voting. They had essentially voted. So I have given you that code via email, so you've had time to make your decision. We were told by the Dare County District 8 Field Support Specialist yesterday that it was state's recommendation that we could cancel that ATV based off of their interpretation of that administrative code. And so therein lies the discrepancy of how I interpret it versus how the state. So it will be at the board's pleasure to decide whether or not you would like for me to cancel that ATV, in which case at that point, our ballots cast would be 3407, the voter history would be 3407, which matches the ballots cast of 3407. Or we could leave it with the discrepancy and be one off with explanation. Either way, the votes could be certified because that ballot had no actual voting on it. It would not affect the outcome of the election in any way as far as votes. So that's where we can start. So I'll give you all this information. You can do your own calculations. Also, what you have in your packet is a copy of the unofficial election results. So it outlines those figures that I just verbally laid out for you. That should match the tapes. That is what's posted currently on the election website. The first three documents are just unofficial reports that the state has you sign. So once we finalize, I will go back in the office, reprint those official. We'll sign them the board will sign them in triplicate. And you do have a copy of the incident report, and you have a copy of the write-ins, which we can go over in a minute. And then what you also have are the what we call block style canvas reports. That's your last 5 or 6 reports that you have. And then you also have precinct summary reports. Again, these are reports generated from our election reporting system that just shows what we uploaded from the thumb drives on election night. So it's just, again, you can see that there's a 0 report. And then there is an election night upload. I believe that one would have been early voting, absentee by mail, and then Manio. And then upload to election night is all the rest of the thumb drives when they came from the precincts. And then you will see the provisional as well. And so that gives you that final count. Each report builds as we uploaded more results. These are reports that we send into the state and as well as the clerk's office. So I just wanted you to see them. You're signing off on all of this data that's going to be sent, to the state. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to go ahead and give you the tapes. Here, and we can pass them down if you want.
I think we should, since it's out there. We'll get to that in a second. Yeah, let's take care of this part.
I will say, if you notice on the review voter history screenshot, that comes from election reporting out of Seams. So after we create our files from our software system, our workstation, our standalone, not connected to the internet in any way, we take that data and we upload it to the state. And so that's how we get our election results. And then the voter history comes off of all of the laptops and all of the manual ATVs. We manually, and we upload all of that voter history. So for every one of these, if you look at the filter, it gives you the election date and the valid voter history. So this is everyone that an ATV was generated. And that should always match the ballots cast. And when it doesn't, that discrepancy, we should have a reason for. And we do, the one from Nags Head. So that voter history, that screenshot, if you look at the very top line towards the right, it says voter history 3408. And that is straight out of Seams from all of our poll books, manual and electronic. That is everything that we have. And it matches, with the exception of one, with the actual ballots cast. On the unofficial election results, this document here that came from the state website, a little more than halfway down under ballots cast, that's another checks and balance. It says 19.36% of ballots cast, 3,407 out of 17,601. So that is also like a way to check. When you add all those tapes together, you're going to get 3,407. And just for reference and anyone listening, that administrative code that I spoke of earlier is 08 NCAC 10B.0104, leaving the voting enclosure spoiled or incomplete ballots. And we would be considering A and F. A and F, yes.
I have a question. In the review package, there is a single-page summary of the municipal results by contest, and then there is a two-page summary. And I wasn't sure what the difference was as to the two reports.
The one by precinct. Let's see. I'm not sure what they're giving us extra here. Let me see. Let's see. It doesn't appear, these are two state required. These are ones that you have to sign. I don't see much difference.
I mean, it looks like one of them is sorted by high to low vote count, and the other one appears to be alphabetical by candidate, but the results appear
Are
to
the
be
same. Yeah,
the
they
same.
won't, right. And so we have to print these three, the abstract of votes, the result by contest, and the result by precinct. And there's no difference in the information. It's just presented in a different way.
And all the numbers are the same.
Yeah, nothing changes. No, because these are actual results. And so once the board finalizes, I will print the official one of these, of all three, and they'll be signed. But it's all the same information, just a different way of laying it out. But it's really not much difference.
It's just the order of the sorts
Yes,
that
ma'am.
are in the columns. Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Randy,
Yes,
have you reviewed the tapes?
I have, yes.
All right. Is everyone here done?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Before we move beyond that, there is the matter of this incident report. The first thing I want to say is we need to make a note that chiefs should be writing incident reports and that they need to be done correctly. This one is not, as you know. Now to the matter of this, I think that that the code is quite clear that the process begins when the ballot is in the hands of the voter. And that is how we have handled it in this county on two prior incidents. So what do the rest of you think? Have you had time to look over the law as it applies to this? And let me know. I guess the question is, should the voter history stand in that the ATV remains as it is? And that this voter did in fact vote because he had the ballot in his hand? Or should we go with the information given not by legal, but by a district rep that I'm afraid might be incorrect?
Well, my concern was I know it was a copy and paste because when you read it, it references you could clearly see they were responding to someone else. And she did state that this was from an email response to another county who had the same situation. But my biggest concern was when they quoted A of the code, that sentence is not how that code reads. They've added the part about walking away from the station. And then in the second portion of that copy and paste, they also add and move away from the station, but in nowhere in the code does it say that. And if that is legal's interpretation, I would have at least wanted to see legal's counsel's name underneath that, and it's not there. So I don't know exactly who this came from and if it was something that the state is taking on as official stance, or if it was just one person's interpretation. So I'm personally not comfortable, but at the same time, I understand their thought process. So of course it is up to the pleasure of the board to make that decision. But I did want to point out that that's why I wanted to copy and paste, send you the actual code, and you can see the comparison of what they stated versus how it reads, and it is not the same.
So if we can mechanically step through this on the timeline and the description of the event.
Your microphone,
The,
is it on?
Yes.
it's on. The voter receives the ATV and the ballot. Now, at that point, from my perspective and from what I've read, that would be essentially the voter has started that voting process, correct? Okay, so we've established that. Now, the voter, without marking the ballot, goes back to the ballot station, which, is that correct, or approach
It's
the
my
judge?
understanding that I don't believe the voter ever left the station. And
Okay.
so they start at check-in, get their ATV, sign it.
Yeah.
Move down a few feet to where the ballot station is. And in every precinct, it could be a little different. It could be a little further,
Yeah.
a little closer to a voting booth. But at that point, he was handed the ballot,
Mhm.
realized that he wasn't comfortable voting,
And
hands
that's,
it back.
okay, that's where I want to stop and focus. Because the voter stated that they lacked information, and that's their perspective, and that their desire was to leave the voting enclosure by returning the ballot, leave the voting enclosure, and then research the candidates and come back and cast the ballot. Now, that would be impossible
It's not allowed, correct?
for that voter to do that. So that was that voter's lack of understanding with respect to our North Carolina statutes concerning voter law. Okay, so, but that was their understanding, and that was their stated intent. So the question becomes then, what would be the proper disposition, one, of the ballot, and two, of the voter record, right? That's what we're trying to
Right, and I will
establish.
say, the voter did not return even to attempt to vote again. He did not return.
Mhm.
The ballot was spoiled.
The ballot was spoiled. Even though there was nothing marked on the ballot, it was spoiled. If you read further down on this code, it, it reads to me, and I'm not an attorney, that an option could have been that the chief judge and the two judges could have unanimously decided to put that ballot in the tabulator with
that-
authority, and
that
that
would've
would have
been
balanced the numbers.
That would have been post the voter having left the enclosure,
Sure.
right?
Right. And I suppose that you could also, the voter could also insert a ballot in the tabulator themselves if they
Right.
chose to. But in question is, what is in question is, had he begun the act of voting? And the state says the fact that he did not make his way in intent to a booth, he had not. But I don't read the code that way. So
I-
that's really what the question is. Had he begun the process of voting? And I'm reading it as the code saying yes, the state says no. And then that to me gets gray, because what if it's 2 feet away and then you realize, oh wait, I'm not prepared. I don't know these people.
Mhm.
How close or how far, it gets a little,
But the code doesn't even address that.
doesn't even
It
address
says quite
it.
clearly that once it is in the voter's hand, the process has begun.
Mhm.
Right, but I think the question that underlies John's concern, as I hear you, is that we have received advice that doesn't answer the question. And we have not received official advice from the legal counsel's office to the state. What we have received is more of an informal email from a staff person,
Correct.
which makes an interesting interpretation, but does not actually follow the language of the administrative regulation. So the anomaly is in the regulations themselves, and it is unaddressed. So that's why we're having the discussion,
Sure.
because I would not, in my opinion, say that we had received legal advice from the state. I think what we got was a staff person's.
And what they, well, and I know that she did not write this, so she got this from somewhere, but from whom, I don't know because it doesn't say. But one of the things that they do say is, quote, "You are right that 08 NCAC 10B.0104 is the administrative rule that is applicable here." So they are at least stating that that is the code to use to make a determination. But how they stated what the code says, their sentence does not match A. If you compare that to A, it is not the same.
There's an ambiguity in the code between
Right.
subsection A and subsection F, because it tells you when the process starts, but it doesn't tell you at what interim phase there is a determination of voter intent that they've completed. And we are not helped as a board by the actions of the judges, because the judges themselves at that moment did not actually decide the question at the precinct.
Mhm.
What they did was spoil the ballot.
Yes.
Even though subsection F says they could have made the decision
Mhm.
based upon where they saw the voter. as
But
to
it
whether or not
also
they should
says in
submit
here
it.
that if they receive a ballot, that they can spoil it. So I think there's just some confusion on what to do, and the state
Well,
hasn't given a,
up to 3 times. They could spoil
Hmm.
and receive a new ballot up to 3 times. Now, the question becomes, and I think you could draw a parallel here. What would occur should the voter exceed those 3 attempts?
well, what I was actually referring to was A, the last sentence in A, "The voter shall return any unvoted ballots to the
Yes.
precinct official."
I saw that as
So,
well.
if he made a decision, if a voter made a decision not to vote, that says, and they had not voted it, that they should return it unvoted to the precinct official. In which case, the precinct official should follow F. In my opinion, the chief judge and 2 judges at that point would enact F and make a decision whether or not to place it in the tabulator or not. At no point does this address canceling the voter's vote,
They-
which becomes quote unquote voted at the point that that ATV is printed and signed.
Correct.
That really, the key there is the ATV, because the ATV has been assigned to that voter, correct?
Well,
The,
I think this, to me,
At-
this rule is clear that once the ballot, because you can cancel an ATV if they've not taken possession of the ballot, that vote can be canceled. But reading this, again, I understand where the state's coming from, because if a person were to look up their voter history, it's going to show they voted and they clearly know that they didn't. But then that's why we have laws in place to explain, if there were a question, why their history says they voted when they technically did not put a marked ballot in a tabulator. So that's where this law, but again, I see both sides. I see erring on the voter and accuracy as far as what did actually take place. He didn't put a voted ballot in the tabulator. But then you've got the law.
Well, I think they're at odds between what legal would say, they've
Mhm.
not weighed in, and what someone with an administrative viewpoint would say. This ATV is hanging out there, and administratively, it's problematic.
Yeah.
But in a precinct, the way it works, once that ATV prints out, that person has voted, whether you cancel that or not.
Mhm.
And if you make a mistake and you print out an ATV and it's the wrong person,
Mhm.
well, if that person shows up, they have to vote provisionally, because even though you've canceled it, they still show as voted in the system. So that's like a complicated
Yeah.
thing.
In which
The-
case, we do cancel.
Correct.
Those are canceled if they never make it to possession of the ballot. That can happen if the wrong person's pulled up, for instance. Those things are remedied. There's always a history there. There's a trail.
Hmm.
It never goes away. It's like, but you see the cancel and you have documentation to explain that. And so we always get to this where it's a little more tricky when the voter has taken possession of the ballot. We've used this code exactly how it's written. In the past, that has been guidance. So this is new where you can cancel.
Right, but wouldn't it be, I guess, of greatest accuracy to report this as the anomaly that it is? And rather than for us to speak to a voter whose intent appears not to have voted, okay, because he didn't think that picking up the ballot was his vote. I think my interpretation of the conduct is this is a person who got the ballot and then realized he or she was not prepared to vote.
You
So
need
I
to-
would think that reflecting the ambiguity of the code would be the appropriate response, however we would do that, because I don't think that they intended to have what they did count as voting. That's the way
I
I would
agree.
see that.
Agreed,
I
but
agree.
it should be noted also that this is a voter who passed sample ballots that were laid out on a table in that precinct in a row, all the same, but laid out, couldn't possibly be missed when you walked in to vote.
But that's irrelevant to the decision of the conduct. All we can
Correct.
judge, we don't know if that person looked or didn't look because we weren't there. There is no mention of what has transpired. So what we have to decide, I think, is based upon the conduct that has been described. And I think what we should be doing is pointing out that there is a lack of clarity in the guidance given to boards as to determine the circumstance and report it in a way that indicates that anomaly.
I agree.
Agreed.
So it still falls on the board.
The anomaly should stand essentially,
agree.
as it has in the past.
And submit the incident report.
And that
as
has
is,
been?
With
Correct.
an addendum that based on the guidance received and the code, that there are still ambiguities that clearly do not address the situation in a manner that we could reach a confident decision.
And I think going forward, we should have in training this specific situation because it does happen. And when it happened to me, because I do have personal experience with a similar situation, when it happened to me, I had no knowledge of this part of the code, no reason to believe that someone who had not left my site and who had not marked their ballot could not do exactly what was done here and come back later. And that was during early voting. Election day, it's a little more complicated, but I just had no reason to know that. So I think it's one of those things because we do have voters coming in who are unfamiliar with the ballot. In this one, I think there was some confusion about candidates here and candidates coming up in the primary. Maybe we should put that in training, specifically in chiefs training, but also in general training. Not a bad idea.
I not being immersed in the minutia of voting regulations, as a voter, I would think I could do exactly what this voter did.
Understandable, yes.
Right.
Leave the enclosure, hand in back the ballot and say, I'm not ready yet, I'll be back.
I understand that, but at the same time, the laws are in place and whether you know them or not
Yes.
is also irrelevant. You could argue
Understood.
you could argue that for anything that you've done against a ruling and it's not going to fly in court.
No,
Right. But
I'm not going against it. I'm just saying a rational person could very well think in the same manner.
But I think if we can't get a precedent set by the state, and this may be it, and they may end up having legal back them up on this, determination. But if we can set a precedent, at least from our board, then we can put it out in training so that there's some uniformity at least. Unfortunately, we're not going to get contacted because it's going to happen in real time. And the chief judge is going to have to determine whether or not to allow that ballot in the tabulator or to spoil it or to, I guess, encourage the voter to vote it and be hands off. I think we could certainly kind of put together maybe a couple of different scenarios and then offer our workers some guidance on that. And then we would not find ourselves in a situation.
I do think it's important, though, to convey the message back to the state that we have not received a definitive answer. And if their legal counsel at the state says, no, we support that this is the way the code should be interpreted, even if the words don't do it, then they should enact supplemental definitions to the code or a memo from the board that gives us guidance on which to do it, because I just don't feel confident that we have received a basis that can be applied for decision-making.
And I would encourage the board to reach out to the state as well. And the reason why I say that is because oftentimes you may get better results than what staff tends to get when it comes to something this serious. I will certainly absolutely do it. But I think sometimes when it's the board reaching out and saying, these are very important issues that we would like clarity on, I think it may get escalated a little bit better than we get a help desk. We use a help desk, and very rarely does legal answer those. They always go to an administrative person. And so I have to push. And at the third time in, I'll say, please, my board is requesting legal weigh in on this. And I wait another week and finally I get something. And so for something like this.
Okay, Randy, do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I certainly had the same reaction different members of the board have had in reviewing it the first time. But I don't think I could make it any more clear than you have already done in your discussion.
Okay. Tammy, do you have anything?
I feel the same way. I think everyone's assessment is about the same, that the code pretty much states that he was in the act of voting once they give it to him. But then our guidance doesn't really back that up.
Okay. All right. Do you want us to vote on this, or?
I think if you're voting on the canvas results as they stand, once we wrap it up, then that works this into it. It's just a discussion of that discrepancy. So I think it could be added in. If we're done with that, I can move on just to briefly on the write-ins. The write-ins, we had a total of 230. Your spreadsheet lists every write-in. So what I will put into the state election results for everyone to see is every person that received 5 or more. So their names will be part of the official election results that you can search on the site. This is public record. So anyone who is interested in getting the list in its entirety is welcome to do so with a data request. We'll be more than happy to make that available. And I will, this will be one of the reports that you'll sign to give to the state and the clerk's office, and then one for us on records. What was not recorded, because different than a hand-eye count where the board is looking at intent, these are only the numbers that were picked up by the tapes. You will get 230, and that's what's reflected here. And in order for the tape to record the write-in, and the circle must be colored in beside the write-in line, the same as if you were voting for a candidate whose name was printed on the ballot. Those instructions are given on the ballot itself. I believe it's B. And it does say, if you're voting for a write-in, to color in the circle, and it gives a little illustrated visual on how to color in a circle. So if a write-in name was printed, but the circle wasn't colored in, that was not recorded by the tabulator. And so we did not, the numbers would be immensely skewed if we took all of them. And I also have email guidance that if we're eyeballing for write-ins to match the tabulations, that we take the circles that are filled in. And that is what you have before you. And that's what I have to present to you. I also do have the supplemental absentee abstract should be completed on Canvas. We have all zeros, but I still will have you fill those out in triplicate for record's sake, but the number is 0, of course. And if the board is satisfied with the Canvas results as they stand, then you can vote to certify the election. And then what I'll do is I'll finalize in the system and print the reports for you to sign.
Kelly, one other question, sorry, to go back to Karen's question about the precinct and the contest results. It starts again on this one, is the reason there's a second page? I was just curious as to why it was duplicated.
I printed it straight from the state site, so it may just be that.
Okay,
They have it, but I don't even generate this report.
okay.
I click one line and it just prints
It
it.
looks like it generates one in numerical order and one in alphabetical order by candidate.
It starts to duplicate it.
Correct.
Okay.
That looks like that's the only difference. Thanks
Yeah,
to
well,
Karen for
And this,
picking that
well,
up.
this one only had the one, and this one has 2 ways.
Yeah. They just like to mess with you, I think.
Yeah, there's no way, there's nothing I can do to even modify it. I can't make any changes to it. It prints,
Mhm.
it shows up, I print it.
No, it's just a bit confusing because the numbers are all the same. It's
Yes.
just how they're
Laid out.
presented that seems to be different in the two reports.
But this
and-
one has it twice.
Yeah,
Yes.
it doesn't even change. It just
Doesn't change. It
literally
just
starts
literally
over.
starts over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're just going to call it technology.
yes.
All right. Is there any further discussion about anything having to do with these results? All right. Is there a motion to certify this election? Is that the proper language?
I move that the Dare County Board of Elections certify the results as presented today in our Canvas report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Any questions? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Yes. All right. If you would make the,
Sure. Would you like to recess for 15 minutes?
of course.
Okay.
All right. We are in recess until, let's say
You want to just do 12:15?
12:15.
Okay.
The Dare County Board of Elections resumes session at 12:15 PM. All of our Canvas documents have been printed out, and we will now sign all of them in triplicate. And I will start.
Does it matter what color ink we use?
Is it all right if the ink is blue?
I always sign.
That's fine.
I
Blue
always
is
sign
fine.
in blue so they can tell it's an original.
Yes.
How you doing? How you doing?
So Kelly, after we've all signed, you'll take them over and Randy signs? Is
Yes,
that- Thank you.
so you can even leave it on that page open if you want, and I'll compile it all.
So leave the second slot below my name for the ones that aren't marked for Randy.
Yep.
Hello. Welcome to my end of the world.
On the ones that don't have a line, you want me to leave a space?
Yeah. please. Randy will sign as secretary.
No, bud. How you doing? Hi.
And everything is signed in triplicate. Um, So I just want to reiterate thanks to all of you for all your hard work during this process. Even these small elections generate an awful lot of work. So it's good practice for what's coming next year. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, we have canceled our meetings for our regularly scheduled meetings for this month, which would be the 18th, and for the month of December, which would be December 16th. Our next meeting date currently stands at January 20th, 2026. We have received indication from Mr. Perry that he does not intend to ask for a recount in the Kitty Hawk mayoral race. However, it is just a signed letter. It is not notarized, so not official, and therefore he has until 5 p.m. on Monday, November 17th, to officially request a recount. Barring that, we're good to go till January as things stand now. And thank you and happy holidays, however you choose to celebrate. I look forward to seeing you all next year. Does anyone else have anything?
Happy holidays and happy new year.
Same to you, Randy.
Thank you.
Take care of that bright and shiny new knee.
It's taking care of me.
I bet. Were you gonna say so?
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to add? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the canvas meeting of the Dare County Board of Elections.
At 12:29? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
All right, thank you all so much. Have a great afternoon.